1.02 is attendance. Ms. Brady? Mr. McGuire?
Here.
Ms. Westphal?
Here.
Ms. Lofton?
Here.
I'm here. Dr. Weston?
Here.
Mr. Williams? Mr. Liggett?
Hello.
Ms. White? Dr. Russell?
Here.
Dr. Nicholson?
Here.
Okay. I'd like to say committee meeting dates for 2025, 1.03. They are listed. Our next meeting will be on March 12th, 2026, 7 p.m. Same place. So, late, but they're noted there. Moving to the second part of the meeting, 2.01, Education Committee of the Whole agenda, items and presentations. I will now turn it over to Dr. Nicholson.
All right, thank you, Mr. McKinney. On our Education Committee of the Whole agenda for this evening, we have 3 presentations. We're proud to have, first and foremost, Mrs. Squeary come up and speak on KinderStart, which is a wonderful program we have planned for this upcoming school year. Following her will be Ms. Aducci and Dr. Moulton to speak about the Perkiomen Valley School District K-12 guidance plan. And then finally, there'll be a brief update from Dr. Moulton on the Perkiomen Valley High School gifted planning, which is a follow-up from last month's gifted review. So, Mrs. Squeary, if you want to come on up.
Yeah. How do,
I was going to say, could you just sit down at the table?
Sit at the table.
There's no podium.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you. Do I need to use this? Thank you. All right, well, my name is Chris Squeary, for those of you that don't know me, and I am one of the instructional coaches here, and I'm here to talk to you guys about KinderStart, which is kind of a reimagined start to the school year for our kindergarten students. So I wanted to give you a little bit of a background as to what brought us here. So last year we had the implementation of full-day kindergarten, which was a huge success. However, it did come with some challenges. So moving from a half-day program to a full-day program raised some expectations for our youngest learners with stamina, attention, and just school readiness skills. We're seeing an increase in academic skills with our youngest learners. A lot of our kindergarten students are entering without foundational literacy and numeracy skills that we would expect. And most importantly, we're really seeing an increase in behavioral and social emotional needs. Thanks. So in response to some of those challenges, our amazing Schwenksville team did a kindergarten camp pilot back in June, where they invited registered kindergarten students in for 4 days, 4 half days at the end of June, where they rotated through all of the teachers, and they just kind of got a little sneak peek of what kindergarten was going to look like. It also afforded them the opportunity to meet some new friends. It gave them the opportunity to build those early relationships with teachers and staff. And our Schwenksville team saw a lot of benefits from doing that kindergarten camp. It provided our students with a smooth transition into their first year of school. It helped them build those early relationships, not just with the staff members, but also with their peers. It really provided our teachers with a lot of valuable insights into what their academic needs could be, but also their behavioral needs might be. And it really afforded our kindergarten teachers at Schwenksville to make really balanced class lists for the incoming school year. So our kindergarten camp, even though it was very successful, there are some barriers to it. The first one being, since it's not a part of the regular school year, we don't have all teacher and staff availability, as well as we didn't have all of our students available. I think we had about half, 40 out of 80-ish. Yeah, so we had about half of our kindergarten Schwenksville students that were available. The rest of them had prior commitments, so they couldn't participate in that. And then, of course, anything outside of the regular school year is going to have additional funding. So keeping those benefits and challenges in mind, we would like to shift the kindergarten camp model to the first week of school. And this would address a lot of those challenges that we saw, but while maintaining the benefits that our Schwenksville team saw. The most important one is equity of access to the program for all of our students. So we assembled a Kinder Start planning team with Dr. Russell, Dr. Nicholson, our curriculum supervisors, our special education supervisors, our elementary principals, instructional coaches, and of course our kindergarten teachers. So here's what Kinder Start would look like. It would be the first 4 days of the school year, which is that first week, which is 4 days. The students would not be assigned a classroom teacher like they normally would. We would bring them in and they would rotate through all 4 kindergarten teachers during that first week while engaging in first week of school activities. It's kind of like a soft start to kindergarten. Each student would be assigned a home-based teacher just for logistical reasons, like for consistent arrival, dismissal. They would go to lunch with their home-based teacher. They would go to special, and then for any kind of family communication that had to happen that week. A big part of the Kinder Start week would also be that it wouldn't just be the kindergarten teachers involved. We would get any other staff member that is not assigned classes during that week. We would embed them into the kindergarten classrooms to support instruction, but mostly to observe the students and to also build those early relationships. During those first 4 days, the teachers and that support staff are going to collect observational data of school readiness, behaviors, as well as peer dynamics. And then on that, And then on that 4th day, our kindergarten team will collaborate since we have all of this data now on our kindergarten students, they will collaborate to make balanced class lists for the incoming year. And then also on that 4th day is when parents and families will be communicated who their classroom teacher will be for that following week. So that day
may I?
4. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, just real quick. So on day 4 of this is when the class assignment would be, so it would be based on the previous 3 days, is that correct?
Correct. So it would be 3 days of observation.
Okay. Just
Okay.
want to be good, yeah, not
Yep.
going to question that.
Yeah, that day 4 is going to be really critical to our team because a lot has to happen that day. So our kindergarten team they're going to have to meet to make those class placements in a pretty timely manner. We need to communicate that to our families. And then our teachers are also going to have to prepare for their class for that following Tuesday. So I have here, if you've ever been in a kindergarten classroom on the first week of school, a lot of prep goes into that. So we have 2 options for what day 4 will look like. So scenario number 1 is we would not bring kindergarten students into school on the 4th day, and we have our support from our administrative team for this. It would, of course, need school board approval. So there's lots of pros to this. It would really give teachers and the staff the time to make those lists to prepare for the students coming in the next week. It would just without having the kids there, the teachers could get into their classrooms. And obviously the cons would be, childcare challenges for our families and then loss of 1 instructional day. Scenario 2 would be we would bring the students in. We would get sub-coverage for each kindergarten teacher in the building. Kids would not rotate that day just to kind of keep things a little bit calmer, and they would stay in the same classroom with a sub. So obviously the pro to this would be there would be no disruption to family schedules and we would maintain instructional time. However, that day 4 list of tasks, we can't guarantee that they will all get done. So those are the 2 scenarios. Here's our timeline. Obviously tonight we're here presenting it to all of you. We're hoping that it goes to the board on March 2nd for approval. One of the biggest things when planning this is we want to communicate with families as soon as we can and as often as we can. So as soon as, if it gets approved, in March would be the initial communication to parents so that they can start preparing for it, because this is going to be a very different start of the school year for our kindergarten students, especially if they have older siblings in the district. We're going to have informational meetings at each building for all of the support staff that would be involved in it. In mid-March, the internal planning team is going to get together to finalize all of the logistical things that need to be planned out. In May, we're going to continue the communication at kindergarten screening. Our principals do a kindergarten webinar where it will also be communicated. We plan to communicate it all through the summer via the newsletters, our website, social media, email blasts, things like that. We will still hold kindergarten orientation the way we always do. And then hopefully on August 31st, we can have the Kinder Start launch.
Go ahead, Mrs. Lofton.
I have a question about the 2 different day 4 models. So knowing the number of students in our community who have, all the adults in the home are working, I recognize that we want to, not for people create more challenges than we need to for people who are working. My question is, if we have, these, what would students be doing on day 4?
So part of the planning that we're going to be doing is we're going to do the subcommittee, the teachers that are involved, we're going to do universal plans for all 4 days. So the teachers are going to plan everything, and it's going to be a lot of just getting to know you, school readiness, here are the school rules, things like that. So those, if students come in on day 4, the sub will have plans created by the teachers, and it will be a lot of just back to school kind of activities and things.
Okay. And is there a concern that students might start getting attached to their home base if they spend the whole day there and then they get assigned somewhere else?
So we have a very intricate rotation model. Thanks to Mrs. McConnell, where we're actually going to rotate kids in the AM and PM. So they're going to see 2 teachers per day.
Okay.
The idea of that, and we're going to mix the students up. So the idea of that is not only do they get to rotate through the teachers and get to meet the different teachers, they're going to be with different groups of kids. So we can really get to see who works really well together, who doesn't work well together. So they'll be constantly rotating. So there really won't be time for you to be attached to anybody, if that makes sense.
So it's speed dating. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
The other question then is about our paraprofessional support. So, if they're there with one set of adults the first 3 days and then another set of adults on day 4, that could be a little jarring. So how are the paraprofessionals going? Is there a role for paraprofessionals in providing some continuity and structure so that,
Yep.
depending on what the sub situation is, that you have that continuity going on there?
So for all of the days, so you're talking about the support staff that
It's,
is
well,
in there?
I'm assuming they'd be there days 1 through 3 in their support roles, and then assuming, where would they be? Where would those paraprofessionals be on day 4?
If the kids are there, they'll be in the classrooms.
Okay, so they're not going to be in any of the decision.
Is that, can I get that confirmed? Yes.
I want to add, and the principals are sharing, there are 2 paraprofessionals that support kindergarten. There are 4 classes of kindergarten students. So those 2 paraprofessionals would be dividing their time over 4 classrooms.
And the subs might be coming from out of, that might be their first time in our building. So it might not be an internal sub, it could be an external sub, which would present a challenge on day 4 for kindergarten.
Right, that's why I was asking the question.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Just to go back, increasing academic needs. Have we done a deep dive into why we have increasing academic needs? Are these children coming from daycare? Are they coming from home? Have they been in Head Start? Do we have Head Start? Do we have program? Like, why are they coming in, you know, now with increased or increasing academic needs?
I mean, I think it's just a trend across, especially since COVID. We don't want to blame everything on COVID, but it's been decreasing since then. I don't have all the data with that.
I would just love to
yeah.
know, like, where the kids are coming from. So I think there's so many kids in daycare, you know, and does daycare not teach them, like, do basic reading, writing,
I don't know if
arithmetic?
the daycare situation is the same after COVID with a number of them closing.
Yeah.
And the federal subsidies running out from
For Head
COVID already.
Start.
So there may not be as many opportunities for these kids to attend a daycare. Or,
I guess I was
especially
just wondering where the kids were even coming from. Are they coming from home? And they're not even having any school setting until they're 5 and coming into kindergarten? Is that what you're seeing? Is that where? Yeah.
So I wonder if one of the principals would, or several of you would be willing to come to a mic and share anything about your experience in the past few years with incoming kindergartners that you might offer to the conversation. If you speak into a mic, then we get it on the recording. If you don't mind doing that.
I also think depending on the daycare, every daycare has their own curriculum and their expectations. So it might just be one daycare has this curriculum and these expectations versus another. So that could definitely be something.
I don't know if there are other theories or reasons that are emerging through your conversations with families in the past few years as to why they may be coming and presenting with the readiness they are.
I don't know if we have a clear picture of that. The students come from varying, you know, backgrounds of some that have no daycare or preschool at all to some that have been in daycare since they're infants through. But we definitely have seen a decrease in readiness skills when they come in. Dr. Gibbons also mentioned there's been a varying degree of ability that the IU has been able to provide early intervention programming as well over the last couple of years.
Apologies. I meant to ask, but I got distracted by the musical chairs. Is this incoming academic level deficit a qualitative assessment or a quantitative assessment? i.e., have we seen like real numbers in terms of it, or is it just like a feeling? Not that I'm not saying that in an accusatory sense. I'm just saying, like, I'm just curious if it's demonstrable, something that, you know, can be paired against peers, against the state, et cetera, or if it's just like a cohort challenge.
I mean, we definitely have data that we've taken over the years. Yeah.
So when you do the kindergarten screening, that's usually what, around March that's happening?
May.
Oh, it's May. I remember it being earlier.
Used to be earlier.
So is there a reason why it got moved later?
We wanted to do it as close to the beginning of school so we had more accurate readiness of where they are. A difference between March and May could be big for a lot of students.
So my question is, when you do that assessment, is there, if you're identifying students with more needs, can those, you know, that's how we used to have the K+ program. Students would be identified as having more educational needs, right, as part of that assessment, and then they were targeted for additional interventions. So can those, you know, can we do both? Can we have a summer camp offered to students who perhaps haven't had a preschool experience, need some of those additional supports that are identified during the kindergarten assessment, just as an opportunity, you know, some like a kindergarten preparedness, you know, I don't want to call it boot camp for kindergartners, but that kind of a sense of, you know, I forget what you called it, the kinder camp. As an opportunity for students who, you know, just haven't been exposed to letters and or, you know, the things that are going to be in a preschool curriculum.
I guess that could be a conversation. What we do in those situations is have conversations with parents, and over the summer, we do share a newsletter that gives a lot of ideas for them to work on and kind of let them know what we would hope that they could come in with and things they can do to help prepare. But I don't
Is
know
that
if there's been a
effective?
is it effective?
The newsletters?
Yes.
Or, I mean, I think, you know, if parents are reading them and actually, you know, taking those tips home with them, and they can access them, that would be my, you know, other
Right.
question. And I just wanted to go back, Mrs. Lofton, you had mentioned about the kindergarten screening and why we have shifted it from March to May, and I'm not sure if Mrs. Venza shared that we know that students from the ages of 4 to 5 make a lot of growth, in particularly around that springtime between that March and September timeframe. So when we were doing a screening in March, by the time they started to school in August and September, we were recognizing that that data was old. It wasn't accurate. It wasn't a true picture or a profile of a student. So just wanted to clarify that
Yeah, it's like
learning that
half
over
a
the
year
years.
old by that time.
Correct, right. So we do it towards that mid-May, end of May, just to get a better sense of a student's readiness.
We also capture more students by doing it in May. Our numbers tend to grow over the course of the spring. Registration's open right now, and you know we have a handful of students who are registered with those eager parents, but it takes a lot of effort and a lot of touches to make sure that parents are registering. So by May, we have a greater cohort of students to be able to screen, and then we do additional screenings in the summer for those late registrants.
See, that's the question I have in regards to, because Dr. West and I visited the camp last year, and you guys did a tremendous job. I mean, it was fun for us. So, I mean, I'm sure it was fun for the kids. But the question I have is, yes, so between the registration opening for kindergarten and the start of school, how many kids did we see, and I don't need hard facts, like anecdotally, between that June and August that came into the district or registered for kindergarten? Like, was it like a number that was either noticeable, or was it just a few?
It's pretty significant, the number of students that register over the summer, and even up until a few weeks before school, we're seeing registrants come in for those late additions.
We can exceed right up to like 10, 12, usually after the 4th of July. Sometimes we get it, that's when we get the uptick.
Right. So it seems whatever you do earlier is defeated by the fact that you just don't know who's going to come through the door
Correct.
later, so.
Correct.
So that was going to be my question, was the Kinder Start pilot was at the end of the school year, but the proposal is at the beginning of the school year. And I just wanted to confirm that it was because it is more advantageous at the beginning of the school year and not because you're facing too many challenges at the end of the school year, even though it might be better.
The reason that it was at the end of the school year was just because that was when all the teachers were available for the pilot.
Okay.
It was based on their schedule for their summer.
But the Kinder Start, your proposal is the best version of the program, not the one that is the most
Correct.
achievable or something like. Because if it's the latter, we can look at how do we overcome those challenges, right?
It affords us, you know, every teacher is there, they're contracted to be there. So we have our
Okay.
full staff of supports available for students at that
Good.
time.
I kind of like the idea of Judy's boot camp for personally.
I'm
Not gonna lie.
opposed to it either. I think it'd be, you know, certainly more conversation about it. I'd love to see this happen. This is like our tier 1, right? If you think about our MTSS model, this is our tier 1, what's good for all students. Layer in that tier 2 support of like, what could some students benefit from in years to come, but I'd love to see this get off the ground with the full support first.
And the benefit of actually having the kindergarten teachers be there and to be a part of seeing the students and being a part of creating the classes is huge. And we were just fortunate that there was a week last summer that all Schwenksville's teachers were available, but this way it will be universal across all of the buildings that everyone's going to be there.
See, and I think that was the most important thing for myself last year in seeing the pilot, which I realized was a pilot. We were using only one school or whatever. But yeah, I think the best thing is to have all of the schools have the same program or whatever. And the thing that I think makes it and we even talked about this when we were walking around, that the reason there may not have been as many students who came to the pilot was vacations, summer camp, I mean, other things that had already been scheduled or done. So I think the further we can have it to the start of school, I think the more successful it'll be and give you an opportunity. So, Dr. Weston.
Yeah, I would certainly agree with that. I appreciated the opportunity to participate in the walkthrough of the Kinder Camp last year. I thought it's a great program, and I like even better the kind of the reimagining here as a soft start to the school year for our newest students. I think that's a really good way to ease kids in. You're rotating through the different classes. They're getting to meet everybody in their cohort and not just the ones in their classroom. Everybody's being introduced to everybody else. Thinking just in terms of fine details here, and it may or may not be a concern at all, but I'm always going to worst case scenarios, and I'm looking at the two different scenarios for the program. Scenario 1 where they don't come in on day 4, and scenario 2 where they come in with subs on day 4. I can see why the scenario 1 is preferred, because it gives the teachers that added time. My concern would be, again, thinking worst case, there's always going to be some people that don't quite get the word. And, in the hubbub of that first week of school, I think about the kindergarten kids who are going to show up at school on that day 4, and they're not supposed to be there that day. So has that been considered? And if that happens, what do we do?
I'm not sure if we talked that particular point through. We never turn any student away. I do know we did talk about our low incidence students, and our low incidence students in kindergarten would come to school on that day. We would afford them that opportunity, and they would actually get to know their case manager. They wouldn't necessarily be with their homerooms, but that is something I think we can definitely take into consideration and think about. But again, we would never turn anyone away. Please know that. So we would pivot in the moment and make the best of that situation. So.
And I'm always confident in our teachers' ability to pivot in the moment.
And I think there's,
I'm sorry, go
I was
ahead.
just going to say that I think that there's going to be so many touch points that we're planning along the way that hopefully we would catch everyone, that they would understand what the schedule is going to be.
I would agree.
See, that's what I was going to say. With proper planning, everyone will know. The thing that I would hate to see is if somebody tries to use it as a substitute for childcare. So just take the kid to school anyway. So, but yeah, I think if they know that there's no class, then there's no excuse for that. So.
Well, and then the flip side of it is they're coming up on a 4-day weekend, and some people might just go away and be happy to have not, kind of knowing that yes, so.
I do also want to mention that this is a model that's used by several other neighboring districts around us. North Penn has been instrumental in the planning of this and sharing of their resources. And I also wanted to speak to Mrs. Squarey leading this work. She's been instrumental in bringing us all together to have these critical conversations. So thank you.
Also, from last year, it was amazing. It was awesome. The team did a great job or whatever. Like I said, I think Dr. Weston and I were so impressed by the setup and how everything was handled. So kudos to you on putting together a really great pilot and pulling it off. So.
Thank you. First of all, I'm very supportive of this. I think this is a great idea that would, as a good way to start the year for our youngest students in a different way, and be able to, after those 4 days, place them in a position for them to be as successful as possible. I think this model, being the time at the very beginning of the academic school year, is really important and good, because if it's earlier, if it's somewhere in the midsummer, you're losing stuff there. While young children change a lot, they also lose stuff, and so this just is a great way to start. Looking at the academic calendar for this fall coming here, they're starting on August 31st which is a Monday. They go through September the 3rd, being the Thursday, and then school is off for the 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th, and then they would potentially have the 8th off, so they would have a 5-day weekend, the way that I'm looking at. Is that correct?
So Mr. Liggett, that
Oh,
first week, they
that's
would
right.
have the
8th would be
third.
off. It's the first day. My
the
bad.
third,
My
yes.
bad, yes, the 3rd. Either way, it's still 5 days. Sorry, I was going the wrong direction. Either way, I think as far as planning for parents, they already got a big gap in there that they already know about. So I'm not that concerned with that. As far as the academic time being off, then this is kindergarten. They're obviously they don't meet the same standards that the rest of the school does. I mean, half day used to be fine, so that doesn't concern me at all. I think the positive of this is how we're setting them up and for success later. And the only real difference, I mean, this is a soft start. The only real difference is they don't know who their teacher is going to be until after they've essentially started school. And I think that's a very small sacrifice for what could potentially be a large benefit. And I'd like to just thank you for finding a way for this to work for the entire district and within our academic school calendar. Thank you.
I would say one of the biggest benefits of having the pilot last year is for all the students that did attend, we feel very confident that they were placed in the correct classes. So that was huge. And if we can get almost all or all of our students, it will only set up the year for much smoother experience.
Also, to go back to Mrs. Lofton's original question about, that gap in success or that gap in readiness, it just reminds me that, again, with so many people working remotely or whatever, some of these kids may have never been in any type of setting, like group setting as far as educational effort goes. So you're starting off with a segment of the students who, you're the first experience that they're having. So I wouldn't take that too hard on,
So I will chime in and just piggyback on what Mrs. O'Sullivan said, and kudos to Mrs. Squarey and the entire team that's been planning this. Not just taking this idea, but really making it better and learning from some of the other districts, including North Penn, where this has been very successful. This is something I'm very excited about. I think what we are looking for here is just an idea from the committee, because we would need to move this forward to full board to change the academic calendar for kindergarten. I have had conversations with Ms. New. There will not be an impact on anything as far as that goes. If you recall, in December 2023, the legislation changed where at the elementary we need 180 days or 900 hours. And we are well over those hours, even if we move to 179 days. So while we'd have one less instructional day for kindergarten, we would, I believe we're 100 and some hours over the 900 regardless. So we would just need to change that calendar and get an idea if that fourth day being an off day is something that everybody supports, moving that forward for a change.
Okay, so we've heard the recommendation from the administration, their wish. Of the board members present, are there any objections to us moving this forward?
No, I think this is absolutely fabulous. I think it's a wonderful idea, and I appreciate all the work that's done on it. My only question is back to what to do on day 4 and how to handle that and what's going to be the best, I guess ultimately what is going to be in the best experience for the kindergartners, do you think?
I think affording the teachers the very best opportunity to be the very most prepared is going to benefit the students. And having that day for them to solely focus on class placement and getting prepared, the classroom prepared for them, is going to benefit the students.
So then my vote's going to be for that model, because, especially knowing the challenges that we sometimes have obtaining subs, trying to, find 15, 16 subs who are going to be skilled at managing a kindergarten classroom that has not quite hit its stride yet and gotten into its rhythm with very little supports. To me, that's the biggest concern of how are you going to actually make sure that classroom day is what you want it to be.
So scenario one?
Yeah, I would ask that this be presented to the board with scenario one for an up and down, and obviously I'd vote up.
You got your request, Dr. Nicholson.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Appreciate all the conversation. Thank you, Mrs. Squarey. With that, we will transition. I'll ask Ms. Aducci and Dr. Moulton to come up and discuss the K-12 guidance plan in the Chapter 339.
Good evening, everybody. We wanted to provide an opportunity to review the work we're doing on the K through 12 guidance plan, also known as the Chapter 339 guidance plan. So when we look at Chapter 339, we want to ask ourselves, what is Chapter 339? We use the term synonymously, I just wanted to provide a brief overview of Chapter 339 and how that plays with our K through 12 guidance plan. So our K through 12 guidance plan was approved and submitted to PDE in March 2023, and it went before the board for board approval. So we currently have an active K through 12 comprehensive guidance plan. That follows a 5-year cycle, and that also is covered under the comprehensive planning process, which follows a 3-year cycle. So where we're at here is an intersection where we have a valid K through 12 guidance plan submitted to the state and reviewed by the board and submitted to the state. And now we have a cyclical review process in between there. So our goal here is to provide a brief update regarding the updates and revisions we made to our Chapter 339 K through 12 guidance plan. So when we look at Chapter 339 is simply one of the chapters outlined in our Title 22 PA codes and regulations. We're more familiar with some of the chapters that are at the front end of those regulations, such as Titles 14, 15, and 16 that deal with special education, gifted, et cetera. We have standards, we have regulations that apply to academic programming and academic standards. But if you scroll all the way to the bottom, you find Chapter 339. And Chapter 339 essentially deals with schools that send students to vocational education programs. And it creates regulations that guide how we need to program for those students, not only through those vocational education programs, but also how we program for those students here within our buildings as well. So that's how we tie in Title 22, Chapter 339, and then basically birthed from that Chapter 339 is the mandate that we are to develop and create a comprehensive K through 12 guidance plan. And if you could switch to the next slide. So this is just a nice graphic that ties everything in. So you have the regulations in Chapter 339 that mandate the creation and submission of a comprehensive guidance plan to the state. It is also presented to the board for board approval, and that occurs every 5 years. Again, we just happen to be landing in another cyclical process that requires us to review certain sections of that plan and update them as part of the comprehensive planning process. Our K through 12 plan essentially outlines what are the programs and services our counseling department offer in order to align instruction and programming to our career and education work standards. So that's the overall tie-in. I know we have a link in which you are all able to go in and review some of the revisions we made. And I don't know if Dr. Moulton, you want to speak a little bit to some of the revisions that were made to the plan. We will then submit this, which is due on March 31st. And again, it's not necessarily a revision of the entire plan, which is due again in 2028. It's certain elements of the plan that we were required to update and revise.
Yes, and as we were called to update and revise, I believe it was only 3 or 4 sections of the plan, when you're in it and you're working with the team, it just made sense to, we couldn't unsee things that we saw in our plan that we wanted to update in our general K-12 guidance plan. It just seemed like good practice to let's go ahead and update it while we're in it and doing this work. So as a committee, we had I met with the counselors numerous times, and we worked through it. A lot of the changes, because again, it was ended up being focused around the career education and work standards. A lot of the changes ended up being made in terms of the smart futures that we're using K-8, and then the school links that we're using 9-12. And those resources really do help to provide a lot of the information and the organization around those types of standards and that type of work. And that link there, the K-12 guidance plan, is the plan that we ended up updating with the 3 sections that we needed to, that Chapter 339 called for us to update, and then we made additional updates as we were in it, because like I said, we couldn't unsee things that we knew that we could update. It just was an uncomfortable feeling. So this is not due until March 31st, but we're kind of putting this across to you to let you know that we've been working on it, and these are the changes that we've been making. It's a long document. It's 80-something pages maybe. But these are, we made changes within there, and yeah.
Yeah, it's simply for informational purposes. We don't need any type of board action at this time. If you'd like to review the document, please feel free to reach out to us with any comments, questions, concerns, anything you might need further explanation on. We will be running and moving forward with the advisory council, which again is called for as part of the K-12 comprehensive plan. I know Dr. Moulton is organizing that committee and will be meeting with that advisory council in the near future. Again, we're called to meet at least once a year. I believe we have historically met once or twice a year with our advisory council, and that is all part of the overall 5-year cycle in providing feedback to any plan updates that might need to occur or any changes that we might want to see within that plan.
Does anyone on the committee have any questions or concerns?
No concerns. I actually compliment you. 5-year plan shouldn't be something that you count the year and say, I can't look at this until that time. So I appreciate the effort, and will always support ongoing evaluations and suggestions. Being locked into those dates is just not prudent.
And haven't had the ability to sit on the advisory meeting last year or whatever. It was a tremendous experience. Those few hours it just showed how well our counselors were prepared and were doing. So again, I give my kudos to the district for being well prepared in that sense or whatever. Not knowing what I was walking into, I was pleasantly surprised, and yeah, so again, great job.
I will say that the counselors and I, we put a lot of time and work into it, and really I give kudos to the counselors that, really they're the domain experts in that area. And I was really there to help organize them and what have you. And at the end, I asked them, I'm a psychologist, so I can't help but ask how people are feeling and take a pulse on things. And I said, so how are you feeling? And I expected all of them to say exhausted. Like, when's the next time we have to do this? Like, and instead, the one person said it, and then everybody else chimed in. They felt proud. And I just thought that was, like, they were really, it was it's kind of a portfolio of the work that they do, and they were, really proud of it. And so I felt good that that's what they said.
No, and just in case they're not watching tonight, we will be sure to pass along the kudos. And again, I think it's a good feeling, that the feelings of pride and rededication and refocus and commitment to the work we do. And sometimes we get lost in the shuffle. So I think it was a moment they had time to reflect and see, hey, we've got a good thing going here.
And the thing that was really cool was there were parents there who also gave, their gratitude for the work that was being done and saw things that I think they were surprised by, because they were like, you guys do what? And this and this? And so again, it gave a context to the work that was actually being done. So yeah.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. With that, we'll transition one more time to Dr. Moulton. If we recall, about a month ago, we had some initial conversations about the gifted review, and we've had a number of conversations since then. So, Dr. Moulton, if you would like to fill us all in on where we've been.
Sure. Hi again. So I've really enjoyed working on this gifted services update, having the opportunity to help, take some information. I like taking data and turning it into action. So this has been a really fulfilling experience for me. So since the last time that we've spoken, we decided to kind of work from top down and decided that we were going to try to tackle high school first in terms of our current work. So we started having some discussions regarding a high school gifted coordinator. So kind of allocating some responsibilities to a professional to work in that capacity to really help to organize and oversee some of the gifted services at the high school. The high school is unique in that there are so many case managers there versus the other levels there aren't so many case managers, which is great because you have a lot of different talent that you're working with, but sometimes it's hard to get everybody on the same page, and the opportunity for a high school gifted coordinator would just help to kind of organize some of that work. And so kind of talking about some different responsibilities that coordinator might assist with, we talked about support and facilitate the differentiation across content areas. So that gifted doesn't just happen in one course, but how can they help teachers differentiate it and make that applicable in different courses? So it's spread throughout their day and not just, doesn't just live in one area. Providing that professional development and coaching, so serving in that coaching capacity to be able to support teachers and to be able to support some of those extension activities was another idea that we had for that professional. Providing mentorship responsibilities to really help support the individualization and foster student voice, especially at the high school level. Students achieving well in AP classes, isn't necessarily unheard of for students that are gifted. But what is their student voice, and what is it that they really want to accomplish, and where are their strengths, and how can we kind of extract out those individual strengths and try to provide a program around maybe some of those leadership opportunities or creative opportunities and things like that. So having that mentorship availability, we thought would maybe help to tap into that. And that could be teacher-to-student mentorship, community-to-student mentorship, but really kind of helping with the organization of that and really focusing on that student voice. And then providing collaborative GIP development. And really that's across case managers to help build upon the student's strengths. So really just making sure that our goals are strength-based and really targeted to the student's individual needs and just really focused on where their area of strength is and how we can further develop that strength. So really want to make sure those GIEP goals are expanding into that higher order, individualized and future-oriented domains, and not necessarily focus so much on achievement in certain areas of an academic course.
Just more of a comment. One of my 3 children was in the gifted program here, and she opted out in the middle school mentality because she didn't like the label gifted. She said all children are gifted. She came from an elementary school that they called their gifted program the Discovery Program. So it's just food for thought. I don't know if that's something that people are moving towards in labels, or even neurodivergent is kind of passe. We're now saying neurological differences, and this is a difference, and I do agree she needed an IEP. I liked the fact that she had an IEP, but, and she had AP courses available to her as she went further in her studies, but she just didn't like that label. And so when we're talking about the voice of the student, I think it's important that I wonder if that was just an anomaly in her, because she's kind of like that, or if there's others that feel that way, that they just don't like that label. Just food for thought. Your
That's a good
thoughts on
point.
that?
Labels matter. They really do, and our whole world is, we're all different categories and all different labels. But I like the idea of it just being that like strengths-based program, and it's not necessarily, you're not per se like gifted in this one area, but you have all these strengths that we want to build upon, and the idea of like gifted students and just kind of like labeling them as that. I know in my student school, they are not gifted, but in my student school, when I went to go and like tour for open house, they had just one room, and outside of it, it just said gifted in big letters. And I kind of was like, ooh. So I understand that. So. I think I have another slide. Sorry. Oh, that's so cute.
That's what I do. I make cute slideshows.
That wasn't on there earlier. So the timeline for the gifted review action items update. So I would like to continue to provide you with updates in terms of areas that we are exploring as teams with our different levels, and how we're taking this document and these recommendations that we got and how we're turning them into actionable items. So our plan is in March, we'll provide some middle school updates because we're still talking with the middle school team about what those could possibly look like and how we can strengthen that program at that level. And then in April, provide some elementary updates, and then an overall comprehensive follow-up plan in terms of what our next steps are and what we've accomplished and where we're gonna go for next school year. And then, and then we also, I was able to create a gifted services webpage. One of the recommendations that we received was lack of parent communication, and it was quite accurate. And when I looked on the website, there wasn't anything on the website about gifted education and gifted services. So I created a gifted services webpage, which will end up being put on our website. Where explain what is giftedness, what are some signs of giftedness, how do you request an evaluation, what are parents' rights, and then also we live in a world of acronyms in school districts and in gifted education, special education, a breakdown of what all the terms mean, just an attempt to level the playing field, and so that everybody at the table knows what it is that we're talking about. And then some different resources for families, for gifted students, and then just informational resources.
I will point out for the board, just in case anybody was asking, as you know, we've been going through enrollments and speaking of where we're looking for next year. So the gifted coordinator position at the high school will not be an add. We're not looking to add a position at the high school. We are working with Dr. Fuller as course requests come in to see if we can reallocate a teacher's time on maybe a half-time basis to be that gifted coordinator position. So that is not a full-time position, and it's not an add to the budget or an add to the staffing at the high school. It would be a reallocation of resources based on staffing. So just if there was any question about that.
How many gifted children do we have? What's the percentage, do you think, or?
I believe our percentage is 7.9%, which is equal to our peers and a little bit higher than the state.
Okay.
So at the high school, then, the way I recall it, students who were in the gifted program were essentially assigned to a gifted English. Is that going to be an ongoing component of the program? Or, for example, students who might be more gifted in other areas, would they have other avenues open to them? How is this, I appreciate that there's going to be differentiation across content areas, and I think that there is a real need for that. I'm just curious, how is that getting implemented?
I'm not sure that gifted is going to continue to live within one course and one subject matter. I think what we're looking to do is like spread this out and make this applicable, across settings. It may still live in that gifted English class, for a while as we're going forward, but really looking to make changes to to kind of have more of that differentiation, and so it doesn't just live in that one space, because many students aren't just gifted in ELA, so
Well,
really trying to
I
expand
think
that.
the challenge is for people who aren't gifted in ELA, but are gifted in other areas and therefore are part of the gifted program, that how they fit into that framework.
Yeah, that's what we're looking to
Yeah.
expand and grow on. That was
Okay.
our area of need.
Right.
So, yeah, so I think to get into the gifted program, you needed to be in both English and math, right? You needed to be a certain percentile. And that's why we have AP, because some people may not be gifted in English, but they are in math. So that meets their needs. I guess, and I was going somewhere with this. I guess my question is, first of all, I love the website and the resources, because I think sometimes gifted children are left up to their own devices, not only by the schools, but also by the parents, because they're the least of our worries, frankly. And also if you ask them, they don't want you to get involved. So I think it's great to have this website for sure and have all these resources.
Thanks.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
I'm looking to kind of do that for some other populations that I'm, working with, to really expand that communication and put that out there for families.
All right.
And one more. And then
Go
when
for it.
do we identify? Are we still identifying in elementary school the gifted? Yeah, we're testing them in first grade?
We do universal screening in second grade, but children can be identified at any point in time.
Okay.
Oh, and it's also about how to request an evaluation, and I talk about the whole screening process and what that looks like on the website as well.
Yeah. And it is quantitative, not qualitative. I knew EJ was going to be asking that next. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Dr. Moulton. If there's nothing else from any members of the committee, I believe that is the end of the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Nicholson. Moving to third section, 3.01. Minutes will be posted following the meeting. 3.02. Notice the video recording disclaimer. And then 3.03 is adjournment. I was trying to make it on there now. So much good discussion. We did start late.